Okay, I think we've got everybody on. We're gonna go ahead and reconvene. We will now switch gears to our City of Palatka, July 23rd, 2020 commission meeting. At this time, we're gonna have our invocation by Commissioner Campbell, followed by the pledge. So if we would all stand at this time for the invocation and the pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy and what you bestowed upon us, God. We ask as we go about this meeting that you give us the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to make the proper decisions to continue to move this city forward, God. We're also asking for a special blessing during this time of pandemic, God, that you continue to heal, God, that the numbers don't rise, God, that you continue to heal this city, this state, and this nation, God. We pray these prayers in your name. Amen. If you would join me for the pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll now have a roll call. Commissioner Campbell.
Present.
Vice Mayor Brown. I know she. Vice Mayor Brown is here. Commissioner McCaskill.
Here.
And Commissioner Borum is excused.
Yeah, man, I'm here.
Gotcha. So we have 4 members present with 1 excused absence, and we have a quorum. Moving the agenda to item A on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from the June 25th meeting?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Item B would be the approval of minutes from the July 1st meeting.
Motion
All right.
approved.
The motion to approve. Is there any unreadiness or exceptions? Is there a second?
Second.
Second on the floor, any unreadiness? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to public comments, item 1 of the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. Anyone wishing to speak during public comment, please call 386-329-0100. Again, the number is 386-329-0100 to speak during public comment. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. If you are calling and you have another device open, please place that device on mute so that we won't get the feedback. Again, the number is 386-329-0100, 0100. Is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Possibly. Hold on one second. Ms. Robinson, do we have anybody?
Hold on, sir. We're getting a call in right now.
Is there anyone for public comment?
Sir, we have a caller that wants to make a comment regarding to item number 4 to the consent agenda.
Keep them on the line for me, and when we get to that item, we'll discuss it. Excuse me. We'll now close public comment. We'll move on to the consent agenda. There are 4 items on the consent agenda. I'm going to remove item number 4. Are there any other items on the consent agenda that we wish to have removed at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion as it relates to items. And actually, that's not on the consent agenda. To items A and B on the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that we wish to have removed? Items
I
2A
want
and
to
B?
ask some questions about the housing authority. I know we do them every year, right?
On the consent agenda, we can do them in a second.
I thought that was one of the things that we had that said housing authority.
You're asking about asking about the contract for the housing authority, item 2B?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
We have asked them about paying the fire fee and doing some other things. Is it any money transaction that they get for the extra? I think they get paid, the police a little something, don't they, an hour?
Right.
But everybody else kind of has to do something with the fire fee. Is it not the time to talk to them about their responsibility, because they use the police, the fire department, and our
Separate
garbage
issues.
people?
You're mixing the issue of police. Yeah, those are 2 separate issues that as it relates to that service portion of the
But
contract.
those things, I mean, fire impact, we've got the housing authority now. And they're asking for extra policing, right?
My agenda, what we have right now on the agenda is we're talking about supplemental services for police protection.
That's what I'm talking about.
Based on the contract, supplemental service for police protection have nothing to do with fire services.
I know it has, if we giving services to them, I know it has nothing to do with it. I want them to realize that they are getting more service than they pay for a lot of times. And the supplementary service for police protection is wonderful, but the other things that go along with it, and why they want something from us, I want them to have a reminder of all the stuff the city does for them, so that when things come up, they can participate with us with them.
Okay.
That give you a headache?
It didn't give me a headache. It's just not a part of the agenda today.
Okay.
But your comments are duly noted. I've had the discussions with Dr. Woods as well, and I think that there may be something in the pipeline. But I want to stay on this agenda.
I want them to have police protection.
All right,
do
me a favor, hold that thought. Is there a motion on this consent agenda? Item number 2. You have 2 items on the consent agenda, items 2A and B.
Motion to accept items 2A and B.
Items 2A and B on the consent agenda. There's a motion to approve. Is there a second to that?
Second.
There's a second to those. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I guess
Opposed? Are you opposed?
Go ahead. You
Oh,
said
you
you were
want-
gonna talk about the housing authority.
Are you? I need you to vote. I need you to vote for me.
I said yes.
All right. Item carries. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Commissioner. You can go back into your dialogues now that we're finished with that item.
Well, I said what I needed to say. I think that they need to realize that if we work with them to do the things that they need, then they need to work with the city a little bit better on the things that make all of us better. And some way, I think that we need to get that over to them. And since we are protecting our citizens, because they are all our citizens and our family, they need to know that when that other stuff comes up, they need to work with us like we work with them. That's it for me.
I will relay the message and forward your number to Dr. Woods and Mr. Jones. But it's definitely a worthwhile conversation. Moving on to item 3, direction concerning retaining CARES funding consultant, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As all of you are aware, we are entering a time frame where it may be possible for us to acquire funds to reimburse the city for CARES related expenses. The county has been allocated about $13.3 million, of which they've already received, I believe, the first 3 million plus in hand. We will be, as I understand the concept, and I'll know more about this tomorrow because we're having a meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock with the county, or the county's having it, and inviting all municipalities to basically attend by Zoom or virtually. But the way I understand it's going to work, and I think I may have explained this before, we will be required to submit our expenses to the county for reimbursement, with us paying for the expenses in advance. Obviously, this means that we have to be extremely careful about money that we pay, because if we don't get reimbursed for it, it would be an unbudgeted expenditure that could be of significant consequence to the city fiscally because of how tight our budget is. There's a lot of gray area in this CARES reimbursement program, or CARES Act funding program, as to what is reimbursable and what's not. There's some things that are obviously reimbursable, like if you bought extra PPEs or something of that nature, and then there's some areas of expenditures that are not necessarily clear and reimbursable. So what we had hoped to do is obtain a little bit of assistance for our staff. This is essentially new ground that we've all been breaking, and we're all sort of learning as we go. The county has retained a consulting firm to assist them, and so that consulting firm, I assume, will be giving the county a lot of guidance in terms of how the county approaches both their direct disbursements as well as reimbursements to municipalities. Municipalities, at least of our size, did not get any direct allocation from the government. We get ours from the county, and as I said, if we advance the money and either the county or the feds decide that it wasn't a reimbursable expense, it's out of our pocket. For that reason, as well as the fact that a consultant might be able to help us in essentially developing and identifying areas of reimbursable expenses that we had not really thought of, we would like to have the assistance of a consultant. I contacted the League of Cities. I contacted the Association of County and City Managers. I contacted the Northeast Florida League to get some help in terms of recommendations. And what I found basically was that this is an area of expertise that isn't long established, because this program is not long established. So it's not like some programs where you've had things evolving for years, and you've had people who have made a living of learning those topics. So all they could do basically was give me some names of 3 consulting groups, or actually lobbying groups, who they thought might have people who were working specifically in this field. One of those groups was the Becker-Palatka group, and I made contact with all 3 groups actually, and spoke with a representative of Becker-Palatka and someone that they felt had special expertise in the area. So I sent all of you a package, which was fairly voluminous, that had details regarding that individual's background, and certainly that's a public record that the public is free to look at, but it was a little bit big for the agenda package. So what I'm looking for is direction, and I'll caveat that direction by saying this. If the thinking is, and I say that advisedly, I'm using my words carefully, choosing them carefully. The thinking is that the money that's paid for the consultant will be reimbursable. The county is operating on that premise, and I believe that is generally believed to be the case. So if you authorize us to move forward with retaining a consultant, I would ask that your authorization be contingent upon us getting reassurance from the consultant that essentially their fees are going to be reimbursable. And if they're not reimbursable, we won't owe them anything. And that may sound like a harsh way to go forward, and we may not find that this group is willing to operate on that basis, but we simply don't have the luxury of being able to put out money for a consultant.
Low. It says low battery.
I know.
Your phone.
Somebody helping Ms. Brown?
Yes, sir, they are.
Okay, great, thanks. So that is my, and if you say no, then I have assembled a team in-house, and we are already in the process of obtaining both identification and documentation of those expenses that we know were directly COVID related, such as PPEs, overtime expended because of COVID, those kinds of things. And we do intend to submit those to the county quickly, as soon as the final forms or our final tabulation has been made. And we'll continue to do that. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. I believe that it's an area that we might, if we can receive reassurance that our consultants' fees would be reimbursed, I see it as being an opportunity for us to explore some areas of reimbursement that we might not think of on our own. And if not, then we'll work with those areas that we know are black and white and go forward with those. But the other side of this would be that if the county has a consultant, then it may be that our consultant talking to the county's consultant could be more persuasive than any of us talking to the county's consultant. And that's my thinking. Happy to answer any question. Anybody has one?
Any questions or comments from the commission at this time? I think, I guess, any comment from the commission?
Well, I mean, that if it's not paid for, it doesn't hurt us to get everything we need.
I agree. I think, so I've had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Holmes about this. You guys are familiar with Becker Poliakoff and the work that they do as it relates to federal funding, but they actually made the recommendation for a consultant who has extensive knowledge of CARES as well as works with other communities. And I think that Mr. Holmes' reasoning and rationale are both critical. I think there's a great opportunity for us to be able to provide some innovative opportunities for our citizens, for our local business owners, as well as for the city as a whole, as we all adjust during this pandemic. And so I definitely believe that the contingency gives us the safeguard in place, but it also gives us an opportunity, I think, to be able to maximize our contributions to our citizens and take off some pressure from the county so that the city will be the place of government which is most familiar with our business owners within our community, as well as our citizenry, and know what their needs are more so than anyone else. And it's a perfect opportunity to exercise home rule and try to find ways through the CARES Act to be able to again build Palatka up and help people recover from the losses that were in place as we move this community forward.
So do you want a motion to move along with recommendations from our city manager? I'll make that motion.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McCaskill. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Questions called by Commissioner Campbell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Great job, Mr. Holmes.
Mr.
Moving
Mayor,
forward. Go ahead.
if you don't mind, I apologize, but the city attorney is just stepping in my office. I guess that her microphone wasn't working when we were at item 2B under the consent agenda. If I could ask that perhaps we go back and revisit that item for a second.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay, so there's in essence, the contract or the resolution that is before you, the 2020 R-74, specifies that the contract would be effective July 23, 2020. In actuality, the preceding contract ran from June to June. And it's our belief that our city police department has actually been providing those services since June. So the correction I think the city attorney was asking to make was that we make that contract effective when the old contract expired, which was June.
May 31st.
May 31st, yes, sir.
So there's a recommendation as we take item 2B to make the contract effective non-pro-tunc to May 31st of 2020. I'll entertain a motion for that at this time.
So moved.
Second by Commissioner Campbell. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're moving on to item number 4. Direction regarding disposal of surplus real estate held by the city. And I'll turn this one over to Mr. Griffith, or is it Mr. Holmes?
Well, Mr. Griffin probably has greater detail familiarity. What I will tell you that, yeah, I was trying to see if I was on mute. I will tell you that what prompted this was as we went through our budget discussions, Ms. Becker and advised me that we were actually paying ad valorem taxes on multiple pieces of property that we were not essentially using 4 or 5 parcels. And they were properties that had come before the commission before as being essentially surplus. So at the time, I took the opportunity to ask Mr. Griffith if he would take a look at all of our surplus properties and bring them before the commission so that the commission could give us direction as to whether the commission would like us to try to dispose of them, or if the commission wants to hold them for some reason. It's obviously that's a policy decision for the commission to make, not an operational one for me to make. And so what you have in your packet is basically a description that Mr. Griffith has put together. And I think it's complete with some photographs and maps. And he's I think he's on the line and available to answer questions of that.
I have. Oh. Let him go ahead and talk this, then I'll have something to say.
Okay, the only thing I have to add, commissioners, is there's a total of 17 properties. I will point out that a number of these properties are on North 11th Street, and there have been some recent discussions about our redevelopment efforts in this corridor. So I just wanted to bring that to light if you wanted to pull some of these properties for a later discussion. And there is another property just off of Laurel and South 10th, of which we have had some redevelopment discussions about, specifically with infill housing.
So as we move into that discussion, I would, all those properties that are in that North 11th Street corridor, including the property on 12th Street as well, I would ask that those properties be removed from the list, as well as the Edgemore and Ragsdale properties. And then there's another property on Kirby and Kirkland as well. I think all those properties are subject to infill. the city can actually create some development opportunities within those properties by tying in some timelines and some contractual obligations to those pieces that will give us, I think, critical infill, residential infill within the city, similar to what we talked about in some of the other corridors. The 11th Street property becomes essential for us as it relates to creating a new and reviving the 11th Street Business District under the Vision 2020 plan. And so those would be the pieces that I'm looking at. Those 11th Street properties were initially obtained for the purposes of business incubation. And I think that as we look at what's coming down the pipeline with the Housing Authority looking to do some rad mod and residential rehab and building new units that will eventually end up on the tax rolls, I think, which goes back to what Vice Mayor Brown was talking about earlier. Those pieces become critical because they can create massive infill within an area. So the Housing Authority has 62 units that they're looking to bring on board for residential infill, which will be a part of, that will be basically owned by the developer and be tax-paying properties at some point. And I think that those create additional opportunities to have demand in place for businesses that are looking to relocate into that general vicinity. It was once a thriving business district, and based upon proximity and all the other things that are in place, including the conversations about a possible new CRA, it becomes the perfect place for us to look at holding on to those properties so that we can be the catalyst for development. Vice Mayor, I know you had, go ahead, Mr. Griffin.
This is Don Holmes. I just want to make sure we have an accurate list of the properties that you suggested. I know at some point at the end of the discussion, there'll be a motion made. I just want to make sure that in our minutes, we've got an accurate list of the properties that you identified just a minute ago as wanting to remove from the list that could be disposed of. So I know it's 11th Street properties.
I'll go through the list that you have here. So it's vacant lot on Kirby and Kirkland. It's also the lot on the corner of North 11th and Olive Street. The second lot on the corner of North 11th and Olive Street, ending in 02. The rectangular lot on Olive Street and Railroad Crossing. Lot on North 11th Street and Olive Street, block 199, ending in 1500. Lot front in 11th Street and South Olive Street, ended in 1600. L-shaped lot on Ocean and 11th Street. And then the L-shaped lot on North 12th Street, North Napoleon Street.
Great, I appreciate that. I'm sure that our record will be clear on that then when a motion is ultimately made. Thank you.
There's two more. Well, there's a lot 2015 Edgemore. And the lot fronting South 10th and South 11th Street and Close Laurel.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Any other lots that you want to address from the commission or any other comments? Can you unmute Ms. Brown?
Unmute. Okay. You hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For a while, I have been bringing up the possibility of having a place, making a way for the people who work for the city of Palatka to have their homes. And I think if we can take a look at it, it might be where some of these properties that we have can be part of a program to help keep our people living and working here. Our firefighters, our police officers, the other people who work for the city lot. We have those properties, and if we could fix it like they did, I think it was Tampa and St. Pete. We can't afford to give down payments to our employees to help them buy homes. But with the properties that are there, if they could get properties that we have at a reasonable price and help them set up a way to build homes there. Farmers Home does it, CDBG, a bunch of ways that we can go after it. Banks, there have been some banks that have, if people would save $50 a month, they would save 50, and then they would work with them on giving them loans to build or buy their own homes. And before we get rid of all this property, I would like to see us see if there is a way to help the people who work for the city have their own home. It should not be anybody who's worked for the city for years not be able to say they had a home. And if we had some of these police officers and firefighters who could have a nice home here, a lot of them would stay here with us and stay on the job, because it'd be an incentive for them. I just want to put that bee in you all's bonnet, because I probably won't be here when it's done. But I would like for you all to please try to help the folks that work for us, who sacrifice for us, who give their all to us, be able to have their own home.
Any
I'm
other
finished.
comments?
No, I'm finished.
And that's, we still, so on the books, we still have the Live Where You Work program. I think the framework has changed, Mayor, Vice Mayor. And so I think that's kind of what you're referencing.
Mayor, I have one thing I'd like to add.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Not included in this list because you previously authorized surplus. I just want to make sure it's clear. We do have a property on 9th Street and one on Eagle Street that was previously surplused, and we were in negotiations with Eco Covering Group, but they've since walked away. So I just would like clarification of where to continue with trying to surplus those two properties.
I think there's a,
Ninth and Laurel.
right, the 9th and Laurel House. I think that property has the opportunity to make a nice home for someone. I know that there's been some damage to it recently. And so I would like to see it surplus on this list as well. I don't know if anyone else has a comment about it.
I think that's a good idea. I think if somebody would, it's got a nice yard to it. It's on a nice corner lot.
Mr. Griffith, it has the adjacent lots to it, correct?
Yes, it is a double lot. There's a lot fronting Laurel and a lot fronting 9th that has the house on it.
So there's a question from Larry Beaton, just so that you guys know, and maybe one of you can answer it. Is the property surrounded by Creel Avenue, Osceola, Kirby, and Morris being considered? And I think that's the property we just discussed.
That Osceola, that swamp in there. Am I on? It isn't that Morris, Osceola, and Kirby Street. That property in there, I thought was swamp, and that's why they hadn't done anything with it, because and I was thinking some of that water drains through there off of Highway 20, doesn't it?
So commissioners, one of the lots was included on that area the city owns. It is, I believe, 4210-276850-1460-0083. Mayor, I'm not sure, was that one that you included in your recommendation to remove?
What's the caption on it?
Lot corner of North 11th and Olive Street, block 198.
I did. Yep, I did.
Okay.
So I've got someone I've got someone else on the line holding. Let me take this caller on the line. They've been waiting patiently. Caller, can you go ahead?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, staff. I hope you're all well.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm well also. Busy. I'm calling in regards to the property that Jonathan Griffith just mentioned, 309 South 9th Street. It's a surplus property that the city did request some RFPs on. I did submit an RFP, a well-developed and serious RFP on that property. And I am ready to move forward and enter into a contract with the city to restore the house, get it back on the tax rolls. And the city has already been successful at getting surplus properties like this back on the tax rolls with these types of contracts. Notably, we have one here in the South Historic neighborhood on Dodge Street. Came out with a very successful contract with Mr. Harwell. So I just wanted to call this evening and express my interest in restoring the house at 309 South 9th Street.
Okay, and just give your name and address for the record, Mr. Russo.
My name is Vito Russo, and I live at 415 Emmett Street.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Russo or comments?
I have a comment at the appropriate time.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Holmes.
So what happened was several years ago, and I'll confess I can't tell you what the year was. We did put out RFP, request for proposals, from the public as to a couple of different houses, including the house that's now being referenced on 9th Street, and the house that Mr. Harwell ultimately acquired. And the RFP was basically from the perspective of basically give us your best bid. Mr. Harwell's bid, as I recall, was I can't give you the details, but it involved him paying a nominal amount of money, but him agreeing to restore the house, live in it for a certain period of time, get it back on the tax rolls, comply with all codes, and not allow any kind of mechanics lien or other lien to accumulate on the property until he completed the renovation, at which point the city would give him a deed to the property. He did, we did, and my understanding is that property turned out very well. I've not seen it. Mr. Russo was not the winning bidder, for lack of a better term, on the property on 9th Street. Someone else was. And that bid basically, or that response was essentially accepted. But during the contract negotiation period, or at some point in time, it was over some period of time, the corporation that had been the winning bidder basically either walked away or was dissolved. So that didn't move forward. That has been quite a while ago. My thought would be on this property to put it back out for an RFP. Times have changed. Housing costs are up. I'd like to see what the best option for the city is. Of course, Mr. Russo would be more than welcome to submit an RFP like everybody else. And if his is the best RFP from the city's perspective, then obviously he'd be the winner. But because of the lapse of, or the passage of time, and just in an effort to try to maximize the, as we always do, the city's assets and the interests of the citizens, because this is owned by, the citizens of the city of Palatka. I would suggest that we put the property back out for an RFP, much like we did on the earlier occasion, which is the same thing I propose to do on any of the other parcels that have been surplused and that the commission says we should go forward to dispose of. It would be my intent to put them all out for an RFP saying, give us your best, your best proposal for acquiring this property. And if that proposal is, I won't pay anything, but I'll put it back on the tax rolls, and conditions can be met, then so be it. But somebody might be willing to pay some money for that property which would go back into the city's funds. And if it did nothing but go into our code enforcement fund, which, as you know, and the commission knows, those of you who I've spoken to, it is our intent to sort of, I guess, revitalize our code enforcement process. We've got 5 properties in abatement right now, filing suit, which will probably exhaust the money that we have in the code enforcement budget. If we end up having to tear those down and dispose of them, then perhaps the property or the funds that we might generate from these surplus property dispositions, if nothing else, might go into that fund and help us, continue that process of trying to improve some of the properties around Palatka. So that's my recommendation, but of course it's your decision.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Russo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, also, we have a comment from Allegra Kitchens. It says the only time the city would have to pay taxes on any property they own would be only if the city rented the property to a for-profit entity. The city needs to talk to the property appraiser. Something is seriously wrong if the property owned by the city and not rented for profit is being taxed. This is the second time this year and the third time in a year and a half this same subject has come up. It keeps coming to the city commission over and over. And so those comments are duly noted. I know, Mr. Holmes, you looked into that as well.
Well, I will definitely look into it again, and I'm going to provide the property appraiser with Ms. Kitchen's opinion.
Any further discussion from the commission or any other properties that you wish to discuss as it relates to the recommendations that are there, as well as direction?
I think Mr. Holmes has a good idea by putting them out for bid. Because like you said, code enforcement needs money and other things that we got going on need the money to get stuff done.
Campbell or Commissioner McCaskill, any comments? Okay, Commissioner McCaskill.
Not at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion as it relates to the conversations we just had.
Motion to accept taking the recommended ones off that the mayor made to look in for further development, and to the others, if you would like, put out for a bid, if it's nothing but a feeler, to see what we can do.
Okay.
As recommended by the city manager.
For the motion, is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion on the floor in a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you very much. And thank you for your work on that as well. Moving on to item 5 of the agenda, which is our public hearings. First up is item A, public hearing on the wastewater facility plan for treatment facility modifications.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. And I'll be speaking to item 5A and 5B. Commissioners, this project has been in the works for a number of years. I think we all know the importance of this project. The project consists of constructing improvements to the sludge treatment and dewatering facilities at the wastewater treatment plant. Specifically for the dewatering facilities, we'll be upgrading and replacing the belt press. And for sludge treatment, we will be converting from anaerobic to aerobic. This plan has been prepared, and a lot of thanks needs to go to Ms. Tucker. She's been working diligently with SRF staff to get this thing in place. But this plan has been prepared in support of the City of Palatka's wastewater treatment plant modifications in accordance with the DEP SRF requirements. This is a laborious task to put this thing together. There's a reason that this is little to no interest funding. They do not make it easy to get. But I really I just hope that everybody understands the importance of this. Another thanks to Brian McCann and his staff. They have kept these two critical components and all the necessary pieces of equipment limping along for over 5 years while we get our rate structure in place and get our fiscal sustainability plan adopted, and now this wastewater treatment facilities plan. And hopefully with your approval tonight, we'll be going in front of the State Revolving Loan Fund Review Committee in August, and hopefully bringing some good news back to you in September.
I understand we've been trying to get funding to take care of the sewage treatment plant because it's way overdue. And I make the motion that we move forward with it, with the plan.
On the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Campbell. We're now open the floor for public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak during public hearing, the number is 386-329-0100. Again, 386-329-0100, or you can place your comment in the chat. So we're now open the floor for public hearing. Seeing no one, we'll close public hearing.
Mayor.
Yes.
Mandy just brought it to my attention. Mandy, can you get back in here, please? Do you mind spelling out exactly what has to be on the record?
Yes. On the record for the public hearing for the SRF requirements, it's important that we discuss exactly what the project will be, what the cost potentially is, and whether or not the rates will currently cover it.
Okay. Mayor, Commissioners, I obviously have covered what the project is. In reference to the rates, we have been budgeting for, if the proposed budget is approved as presented, we've been budgeting for 2 years now for the debt service for a $2 to $3 million project. We are requesting approval from SRF for $3.5 million as a precaution.
For about 4 years at no less than 1.5. So do we need to also put the rest of, is there anything else that we need to put on the record, Ms. Tucker?
No, sir, that should cover the requirements. We did notice the public hearing and we've received no questions from anyone prior to this meeting.
Thank you.
And this has been one of our priorities for the commission. And so again, we thank you guys for your work on this particular project. Seeing no one for public hearing, we will now close public hearing. Is there any further discussion from the commission? Seeing none. Question. We got one question from the commissioner or no?
No, did we have to add that, or you're going to do it automatically?
We didn't need to add it to the motion, did we? We can, your motion, that doesn't need to be added to the motion, it just needs to be there for the record, correct, Mr. Griffith?
Correct, Mayor.
Okay.
So just have to make sure the record was correct. And so we will now go ahead, call question. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Again, thank you. Moving on to item 5B is adopt resolution number 2020 R75, adopting the wastewater facilities plan for treatment facility modification. And so these two work in concert. Go ahead, Mr. Griffith.
Mayor, again, I don't think there's a need to repeat myself. This is related to item 5A. It's just adopting the resolution which adopts the wastewater facilities plan. which is necessary to receive the state revolving loan funding.
Go ahead and read the caption for the resolution. And I'll do it.
She's coming.
Resolution. I've got it. I got it. The resolution of the city of Palatka, of the city council of the city of Palatka, Florida, relating to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, FDEP State Revolving Fund, SRF, adoption of the wastewater facility plan for the implementation of the plan's improvements effective this date. There's a motion by Commissioner McCaskill.
Second.
There's a second. This time we're open the floor for public hearing. Is there anyone for public hearing? Again, the number is 386-329-0100. Seeing no one, we'll close public hearing. Is there any further discussion from the commission? All in favor, say aye.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
just needs to be a correction on the title and throughout the resolution from city council to city commission so that we have the proper name of the commission. And I've spoken to Mr. Griffin and Ms. Tucker about that, and we can make that change.
Don't note it. Change on the resolution from Scribner's error. Any other comments? Concerns? Any further discussion? Questions called. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item C, public hearing 2020 trim calendar, adopt resolution number 2020 R76, setting tentative millage rate for 2020-2021 budget year, 6.4 mills proposed. Go ahead and read the caption.
A resolution of the city commission of the city of Palatka adopting the tentative millage rate of 6.4000 mills for the levying of ad valorem taxes for the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 and providing for an effective date.
I couldn't hear.
Yeah, we had so much feedback on that it wasn't even audible or intelligible.
Try it again.
Is this better, guys? Yes.
Better compared to before.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Palatka, Florida, adopting the tentative millage rate of 6.4000 mills for the levying of ad valorem taxes for the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 and providing for an effective date.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We're now open the floor for public hearing. Is there anyone here for public hearing? If so, please dial 386-329-0100.
Y'all just need to sit together.
Feedback. Again, 386-329-0100. So just for the record, staff is recommending a tentative millage rate of 6.4000 mills, which represents no change over the fiscal year 2019-2020's rate. The rollback rate for the 2020-2021 fiscal year is 5.4818 mills, represents a 16.75% increase over the rollback rate. And that's just for the record. So we have to have the truth and millage statement in there. So I just want to make sure we have that on the record. Is there any further discussion from the commission? Questions called, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 5D, adopt resolution 2020 R77, setting a date for a public hearing to consider adoption of the 2020 fire assessment rate to fund fire protection services with no change in the rate of assessment from 2019 rates and memorializing staff direction for adoption.
A resolution of the City Commission of Palatka, Florida pertaining to special assessments to fund fire protection services facilities, providing for direction and confirming the annual process necessary for City Commission consideration of the imposition and collection of special assessments to fund, in part, fire protection services and facilities, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Floor in a second by Commissioner Campbell. We're now open the floor for public hearing. Is there anyone here for public hearing? Again, 386-329-0100. Seeing no one here for public hearing, we will close public hearing. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 6, an ordinance accepting RS changes to Palatka Fire Pension is recommended by the respective pension boards. First reading.
The ordinance of the City of Palatka, Florida, revising the Code of Ordinances of the City of Palatka, Florida, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 3, Officers and Employees, Division 6, Firefighters Retirement Plan by amending Section 231, Retirement Plan, Purpose, Name, Effective Date, amending 250.125, Required Distributions, providing for severability, providing for repealer, and providing for an effective date.
So moved.
On the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Campbell. We're now open the floor for public hearing. Is there anyone here for public hearing? Again, the number is 386-329-0100. As we're waiting for those, this is just another housekeeping matter, similar to what we did with police pension and general employees pension. Seeing no one, will close public hearing. Is there any further discussion from the commission? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We survived. Moving on, city manager reports.
Very briefly, as I indicated earlier, we do have a meeting at 9 o'clock that we are going to be sitting in on via virtual means with the county regarding their plan for dispersing the CARES funds that they have already received, the first portion of which they've already received. We'll, based upon the commission's actions tonight, hopefully we'll be submitting those expenses that we've already documented quickly, and then with some assistance from a consultant, hopefully we'll be coming up with some novel but legitimate additional expenditures that we might be able to seek reimbursement for. You all know what our COVID situation is, I assume. You know, we're up to about 1,100 cases in Putnam County right now. I think that basically, I believe at least, validates the concern that the commission and the mayor have continued to express about the need to adopt safeguards. We were at a little over 150 cases at the end of June. And as of today, 23 days into July, we're at about 1,100 cases. That's an exponential growth. You can do the math. If it continues at this rate, I don't know what that means for the essentially the way we go about doing business. But because of that, we're trying to place extra emphasis on the mask resolution that you passed. We'll be taking some measures in that regard in the next week, as well as providing some, I guess, hopefully some advice and notice to businesses in town in an effort to do our part. And I guess that's just the best way to put it, trying to do our part. Mr. Griffith, I think I sent out to all of you a copy of an email advising you of another piece of good news. Mr. Griffith, are you still on the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Do you mind taking 1 second and mentioning the $500,000 additional grant that the city received for the potable water lines?
Oh, of course. And thank you, commissioners, for all you've done over the number of years to finally help us get this appropriation. We have been trying for a while, and we were finally successful. I've been with the city a little over 10 years, and this is the first appropriation funding we've had in my tenure. So thank you. And this will be coming back before you, hopefully in August. We'll be tacking this $500,000 onto the recently bid project, which we commonly refer to the Villages, which is over around St. John's Avenue, Mosley, State Road 20, back to the railroad tracks. So some great news there. I'm sure you guys saw it in the paper and saw the email from Mr. Holmes, but thank you for your support.
And just briefly, it never hurts, Jonathan, to mention the amount of potable water lines that the city has installed in recent years, new water lines, and the amount that this grant is going to allow you to install.
Yeah, I don't recall the number that the grant will allow us to install, but with this and what's contractually committed right now, we're going to be approaching 11 miles here pretty soon. I think that is pretty substantial considering where we were just 3 years ago.
And I think that sometimes the city doesn't do a good enough job, and maybe we don't do a good enough job of thanking the commission for its insight and leadership, but 11 miles of new water lines in a little over 3 years is something that I think by anybody's standard has to be considered to be an achievement for a small community. So we congratulate the commission for its leadership and the staff for facilitating that leadership. We mentioned the reorganization workshop. We'll get that scheduled during August. I won't reference that further right now. I did also mention briefly that we're immediately beginning to take a renewed interest in our code enforcement process. The new city attorney is in the process of filing 5 abatement cases of properties that were identified by the code staff as being properties that were of particular concern. We are using the money that's already in the budget for code enforcement to look at what we believe will be a demolition of these houses because of their state of disrepair and basically destruction. And then we're going to be moving forward from that point to place renewed emphasis on code enforcement in an effort to try to obtain a little bit of additional compliance in cleaning up our community, which I think all of you have voiced interest in over the different times and years of past. With that, Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor, I really have nothing further except to say that we're continuing to do what we can in all areas. We have applied for a $500,000 historic preservation grant, which I think I mentioned earlier, for City Hall. That application is in process, and we won't comment on it, but we've made the application. Staff was very good and diligent in putting the application together, and I think it's a good application. And if we're successful in achieving it, we may be able to make some improvements here that will greatly increase the value and the functionality of the building. So with that, I have nothing further to report.
Any comments from the commission? And I just want to make sure that we continually thank Ms. Griffith, Mr. Griffith and Ms. Tucker for the work that they do as well on the on all our infrastructure projects. I think when we look at the way this team works, it's been very critical. One of the things that we wanted to do with the commission as we set priorities was to build up, was to go in and replace infrastructure that which had been in place since 1886. And so we find ourselves in a position where we've replaced 130-year-old infrastructure and put us in a position as we start to move forward. And so I'm really excited about the possibilities. And we're also glad to see with our lobbyists, we were able to salvage the opportunity for the appropriations in place with the governor slashing a lot of water projects. And so again, we're moving forward across the grid. We've replaced water lines across the grid all the way to 14th Street, north and south. And we're now doing a major project on St. John's Avenue. And so job well done. And kudos to the entire team and to this commission, as well as you, Mr. Holmes. So again, we just thank everybody for their respective roles in making sure that we keep continually moving Palatka forward and upward because we're better together. And so with that in place, I'm going to move on to Commissioner Campbell.
It's just something to add on to what you've already stated. And it's something that we did a couple of years ago. And I think it should be time for us to put together a slideshow as you've done before to show some of the things that we have done within the city over the last couple of years. A lot of people think that we are sitting stagnant, but we have made quite a few moves over the years, especially recently due to the great staff that we have. So I think it should be about time for us to do the state of Palatka or just an update on some of the projects that we have that has happened within the last couple of years since our last update.
I'm working on it already, so definitely. And so after seeing Miss Becker with her video today, we may just turn it over to her. And so Ms. Becker, we're gonna let you go ahead and give your report now, if you have anything.
Hi, Mayor. Just wanted to tell you all thank you for the budget workshop. I think it went smoothly. I was happy that the video that you just mentioned turned out. I'll probably share it with HR so that she could do with it what she may. But just looking forward to getting this budget in place and moving along.
Let's put it on both our YouTube and our Facebook. I think it's a great video. And it actually it brings a human characteristic to all of our staff, and I think it shows just how much camaraderie we have in place and how much talent we have throughout. It almost made me get Commissioner Campbell to join in and start singing again. So I heard Eddie Cutright's the next to sing, so we'll keep going from there.
Yeah, we'll have to do another one for sure.
Yule, I see your line's unmuted. Do you want to go?
Hey, sir, it's just one item, and it's informational only. At the last Airport Advisory Board, the board requested that I inform the commission that it is not planning on planning and organizing the fly-in next year. It's become too big for them. That instead, in the future, they're planning interested in requesting approval from the commission to find a production company that would be willing to take over the affair with the objective of making money for the city, not taking any. Hopefully it's grown big enough to become a revenue producer for the city. Now we know it may not come to pass because of COVID, but if it does, we hope to turn it into a moneymaker.
Moneymaker's always good things,
And that's
Michelle.
it. Yes, sir. That's it. Thank you.
I take it that's you on the airport laptop too. So we definitely appreciate you.
No, thanks, sir.
Anything for Public Works, Mr. Griffith?
Nothing further, sir.
Y'all.
No, sir, nothing.
Mr. Robinson.
No,
Nothing
sir.
at this time. Thank you.
All right, the other Ms. Robinson.
No, sir, nothing.
Appreciate that, Chief Grimes. Counselor, Ms. Thomas. One more time.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
It's quickly beginning to be unretired. So,
Yes, sir.
covered everyone who's on the screen. Is Mr. Cut right around? And so I think we've covered everybody. So we're going to go to Vice Mayor Brown. And also a special thanks to Sonny Krantz. She has been doing an awesome job acting as our clerk. And so we definitely want to thank you for the work that you've been doing, Sonny.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Brown and her trustees and her trusty sidekick.
I would like for you all to give me permission. I have an idea of getting a revolving loan fund started to maybe help start some young people or some people who are gifted with businesses, and to help some of the ones that are already here do it. I have an idea, and I'd like the commission to give me permission to get with our city manager and our attorney to see if we can come up with, if the idea is good enough to do it, and bring it back to you all. I don't want to expose it too early, because sometimes when I come up with stuff, other people not on the commission hear about it, and we look and they've taken our ideas and run a different way with them, but they impeded our progress. So if you all wouldn't mind, I'd like to at least get it started, and if I get it started, I know y'all won't let it stop after I'm gone.
Permission needed. Just bring it forward as one of your initiatives.
Can't hear you.
Just no permission needed. Vet it with council and the city manager, and you can always bring it forward as an initiative.
For all my commissioners to know, so that when we come back, you all be thinking about it. We talked about the business incubator, and some of those folks, if they get it going, gonna need a jump start. And I'd like to make sure that the city encourages more businesses so we can get downtown smiling again. Make it look like our gym city.
Right. And thank you very much, Commissioner McCaskill, since you're already up.
Yeah, I just have a question about how are we getting information out to our citizens about the Live Where You Work program? You mentioned that a couple of times, but just wanting to know for them to hear how to get information that relates to that program.
Live Where You Work hasn't been revived in a long time. It's on the books, but it's a program that needs to have teeth. And so it's one that we would have to push out and actually do some funding on it. So it's not in place right now. One of the things we're looking at doing is trying to get some additional SHIP dollars for the city of Palatka. And if we're able to get some independent funding from that, it may be an opportunity. So it'll be something that we can look at as part of one of our priorities is affordable housing. And so it's something that we can really start to push more on, just trying to get the funding in place through SHIP and some other avenues so that we can start to push it. We've had partners like the Premier Group out of Orlando, also Wealth Watchers out of Jacksonville, who are still diligently working on some opportunities. And so we just recently got a call about something with USDA last week and with HUD. And so as they start putting those pieces together, they've actually been trying to create additional partnerships with Palatka. And once it really hits, then we can start to bring the program back. And if you recall, we also worked on a partnership with John Nelson, who's at the Housing Authority, to do something with Federal Home Loan Bank. And so in speaking with him in his retired state, he's still trying to help push forward and get some additional housing opportunities in.
Okay, and thank you. No further comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell.
I really don't have anything to say outside of seriously thanking our staff for their tireless work during this pandemic. A lot of times being away from their family to tend to the needs of the city. That's definitely something I commend them for, and our citizens commend them for as well. Again, wanting to see and just make sure that our citizens are staying as safe as possible, making sure they're wearing their mask when social distancing is not an option in our grocery stores. Just continuing to encourage the citizens to take care of themselves through this trying time. That's it, man.
Thank you, Commissioner. I guess first up, I want to thank Mark Blumenthal for putting a picture in the paper of me 30 years ago. And with the 1989 Panther football team, as he named the 20 greatest teams in the history of Putnam County over the last 40 years. Got a lot of comments about weight on all my social media outlooks. But I think on a more serious note, I'm getting ready to launch an initiative, and it's called Real Talk with the mayor. And it's going to be conversations, town hall conversations. We've put the initiatives out for race issue study circles. We've had participation of over 400 people in those. As I continually look at Putnam County, in many ways, I'm ashamed of what I see on social media. I'm ashamed of some of the things that I see throughout this community, and the conversations look more like 1965 than they look like 2020. And so we're going to have some conversations in this community as it relates to race, equity, and the law, ways in which cities and government can start to repair harm in their communities, how they can heal communities, and how we can go back and we can review policies and laws that we've had in place, which created poverty and some other issues within the community as a whole. The Florida League of Cities, I actually take my presidency under the Florida League of Mayors on August 12th. And so one of the things that we've been looking at are ways that we can begin to have conversations of how mayors can help heal cities by having critical conversations with citizens, and also exploring the role that government has played in historic harm. And so we're going to have those critical conversations here, and it's going to be called Real Talk, which is race, equity, and the law, right here in the city of Palatka. If we will start out with Zoom town halls, and we will move into, as COVID allows us to come into place, we will continue to have additional conversations. We will crank up and continue on with race issue study circles, a nonprofit organization, RISC, which is Race Issue Study Circles LLC, was put in place to deal specifically with those issues. Aside from that, I'll be coming back in the future to the commission. I'm asking the commission to allow the city of Palatka to do an equity analysis through the REAL organization, which is a part of the National League of Cities, for which we are a member. And what they do is they look at equity and justice within the communities, and they give you a report as to where you are as it relates to race relations, as it relates to equity. And from a policy standpoint, they give you suggestions which will allow your community to raise the floor. And so those are things that I'll be bringing back to this commission. I will also be putting together a task force for which I will bring back to the commission for permission to activate that task force that deals specifically with issues of justice and equity in Palatka, I've extended an invitation to the county commission to join me as we do that. One thing I've found is, although African Americans make up 15% of the county, we make up over 50% of the city of Palatka. But if the all-white Palatka didn't work, the all-black Palatka is not going to work. It's going to have to be a Palatka and a Putnam County, which is joined with Putnam County people who have one specific purpose, and that's for us all to be better together. That's for the gem of the St. Johns River to continually shine as a unified people, something we have not had collectively in a very long time. We're moving forward, but we still have to make sure that we don't allow the past to be the barrier to our future. And so we will have the difficult conversations continuously around the state of Florida and throughout this city. And so again, as the gem continues to shine, we will do the same thing that America is doing all across the country. And that's reviving its social consciousness as we start to deal with issues of justice and equity. We're seeing rioting all throughout this world as a result of the injustices and the atrocities that have been committed right here in America, the rigid history that we've had in place. And Palatka will address its history, Palatka will address its future, and Palatka will be better together. And so we will continually move forward with that. And that is my story for today. And we will have those real conversations. Is there anything else from the commission?
No, sir. We support you.
All right, so that's it. And again, I just thank you guys for all that you do. And if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Looks like Vice Mayor made it. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you.